You like my shirt today?
That is one of the best shirts I have seen. I'm just going to check that this is live on Facebook. I think it might have. Oh no, it looks like we're good to go. That is actually complete gold right there. For everyone watching, read the shirt. You cannot deposit excuses. I love it, Mark. Love it. Welcome. Good to chat again. It's obviously afternoon where you are, morning where I am, and it's always good to chat.
A lot going on, that's for sure. Exciting stuff.
Yeah. I can tell just by your shirt. All righty. Yeah, we were chatting before we went live here, and a couple of topics we wanted to cover today. Firstly, taking the long view. It's a big discussion that I've been having with clients at the moment, going into 2021. And of course, you mentioned, deep diving on the data and how powerful. And I put the title of this as the money's in the data, and it's very true.
Absolutely.
It's very true. And yeah, I think it's coming off our last couple of conversations around, ideal client research, product development and systems and all the rest of it that we were talking about in the last couple of lives. I think going deeper on this topic of data is ideal. So I might get you to kick it off and just give us a overview of what's possible out there, because a lot of people won't know. And as I said, we're chatting before we went live here, but there's a lot of people out there that don't realize some of these services and stuff that we'll talk about today are available. And just give us a bit of an overview what's going on for you, what you're seeing.
Being that we're coming into 2021, the world is still disrupted with COVID. Here in the States, it's getting really ugly. They're getting ready to go into total lockdown again here in California. Everybody's freaking out about it. And so it's like, step back and to your point, take the long view. And to the second point is we need more of what's working today. And so that means that we've got to take a look at who our best clients are, who is prospering during these conditions, and we need to duplicate as many of those relationships as possible. And I've just got to tell you, James, when you said the money is in the data, I could not agree with you more. And this is one of the things that will put any of your clients or my clients ahead of everyone else, is when you realize that what we're doing with our business and with our clients, and I'm talking about your customers and your clients and my clients and their customer base, what we're doing is each touch point, each person that's in our universe is a contact point. And it goes beyond customers. It goes to beneficiaries, it goes to suppliers and vendors, it goes to all kinds of people that are touching. And each touch point represents a node or a connection in our network. And the combination of connections and data makes you uncompetable, meaning like your competition cannot compete with you when you have that power.
Exactly. I want to just preface the start of this conversation with, and a lot of people may not know this about what I do, what you do, Mark, what some people in the industry do. But I know for myself, a client coming on board for me, a lot of people think I'm a marketing coach, or I'm a strategist, or I'm a, direct response copywriter, or along those lines, or even a launch manager. For me, and this is again probably picked up from our background with Jeff Walker, I'm looking at the data, and I know Jeff's a big data nerd, and I don't I wouldn't come across that way as a data nerd. But even in my day-to-day, like I know I've got a, a very high-end client in the real estate space, and he's been going extremely well. We've been, the numbers, the right numbers have been coming down there, and the other right numbers have been going up. So even on a daily basis, I'm crunching numbers. And a lot of people don't see this from a marketing perspective, but it is a huge piece of marketing and growth and scaling a business. There's obviously multiple, facets to growing any business, but this is a kind of a crucial one, and it's very telling. So I just wanted to kind of put that in there as something that we do that people may not know that we do. They kind of think, oh, they just write copy or they just make fancy designs, and that's a small part of what actually happens.
You don't have to be an Einstein, or some mathematical genius to do this, but you have to love numbers. And the more that you love the numbers, the more powerful you are in the marketplace, because the vast majority, and I would say 95% of the market, business owners, customers, clients, are afraid of numbers. They're afraid of numbers because they don't understand them. And your whole business and my whole business is about clarification and simplification. And in mathematics, simplification means reducing down the formula or the event to the lowest, cleanest minimum number of elements or variables or whatever. So for me, it's all about the behavior and looking at that behavior and saying, how can I describe that behavior mathematically? A plus B equals C, A times B equals D, that kind of thing. And the power of this is phenomenal. And it's really reserved for the most part to higher level, larger businesses. In finance, these are the quants. The quants are the people that create predictive analytics and create predictive future outcomes based on trends and characteristics. So what I've been doing for the last few weeks or a few months now is trying to say, how do we find more of our very best client, our very best customer? In other words, what's working now? And we want to find more of what's working now. The challenge is that if you take a look at one of those clients or customers, you can see certain characteristics, but then what do you do with that? And so I went on a research binge over the last couple of weeks, and found that, many of you may be advertising on Facebook, and maybe you've created custom audiences and you've created lookalike audiences. And what that is Facebook putting in the parameters and looking at all of the touch points of those lists that you've added. And they're saying, who else in our universe has similar characteristics? And we'll put them into this custom audience or into this lookalike audience. So a custom audience is typically built around a niche or a niche, however you say that. How do you say that?
A bit of both.
A bit of both. That's always a challenge.
Yeah.
But it's a specialization. So you can say, I want to work with CrossFit gym owners, or I want to work with fire departments, or I want to work with insurance brokers or real estate agents or whatever it is. That's the niche. So we create a custom audience around that niche. And then we create a lookalike audience of all of the other people that we don't have a contact with, but we're able to extract from the data. And it turns out that Facebook does some of that, but for the most part, they use partners. And these are really, really big companies. They're really dark. They're really in the background. They don't want to be known because they're really extracting data at a very, very detailed level.
Yeah.
So
I was just going to say, and this is another piece that people don't know about. Some people know about like list companies and stuff where you can purchase lists and that sort of thing. this is taking it to the next level
Oh,
again.
gosh, yeah. Purchasing lists from a mail order company or somebody like that, that's like baby food.
Yeah.
Really,
Yeah.
I mean, it's really like, it's like pureed baby food. It's about as reduced as you can get. So let me give you a scenario of what we worked on. I was able to find and get an introduction to one of these really high-end companies, and I had a call with them. Had to be introduced to get into them, and they said, "Well, you know, we don't normally work with companies your size, but we're expanding our thinking, and we've seen that many small and medium-sized businesses are having a really difficult time now. So we're interested in talking to you." So it looks like this could be right case, right time kind of situation, because normally these guys won't talk to you for less than a minimum of 6 figures a year for an engagement. And at 6 figures, you're getting their low end entry level product, which really is not super valuable.
Yeah, this is the thing. Like some of these companies, it's really for the big boys.
It is. It's for the Fortune 500 to Fortune 1000.
Yeah, but there is, and this is where some of the businesses we deal with, and I know definitely the businesses you deal with, are really hitting these marks where this data, this level of investment in finding their clients is available now. Like even at 6 figures, I know most people, I guess a lot of people listening to this might think, oh wow, 6 figures just to get some data research would be a huge investment. But some of the businesses that we're dealing with, it's very doable, and it really is an option these days.
Right.
Something to be considered.
And so what I was thinking about was, okay, they give you like a email company, you get so many contacts for a certain plan, right? So their minimum plan is generally 100,000 results. I'm thinking to myself, I don't need 100,000 results, but I've got 10 people that could use 10,000 results.
Yeah.
It was like, boom, all of a sudden now it becomes super affordable. So the first thing I asked the company is, I said, under the terms of use and syndicate, can I syndicate this within my client base? And they said, absolutely. You would be acting as an agency or, you know, a partner for us.
And this is a really good idea for people listening, because a 6-figure investment between 10 businesses can turn into a lot of money. And it's something that, you know, should be considered if you're in one of the bigger markets, obviously, you know, health, wellness, you know, money, that sort of thing. There's a lot of markets out there now that this sort of data, it could be spread across multiple partners and still be very, very valuable.
So this all comes down to the analytics, right? It's what is your acquisition cost? What is your development lead time? And what is the average sale per client? Yep. So I talked to one company yesterday that was doing less than $1 million in sales. I wanted their input and interest. And so they said, well, our best area right now is X. And our average order size for a client is $16,000. So let's put this in perspective. 10,000 qualified leads over the course of the year would cost $833 per month. It's nothing.
And this is
nothing.
This is the thing. People often look at the big number, the initial, 6 figures, you know, or even splitting it 10 ways and it's 10,000. It's a lot of money. It's not, because you've got to, well, it's not if you know your numbers.
Right. But even at the very, very minimum, 10,000 leads for $10,000 is $1 a lead. And when you look at the quality of the qualification and the drill down, I can't get that lead for $100 a lead right now.
Tell us a little bit about the qualification and the depth you
All right.
can.
So this is a different approach to lead generation. Most of the time we create an avatar and we say, this is our ideal customer, and we'll go into Facebook advertising, we'll find interests, and, you know, we'll put all that stuff in, and then we'll spend a bunch of money with Facebook to build the algorithm out and to start getting some return. And most of the time people burn out before they ever get a return. So I talked with my contact and I said, well, I want to do a trial to see how good your data is. And they said, absolutely. What they do is they scrape and they aggregate or collect data across everything.
And I just want to kind of jump in there. The word scrape is kind of an old term. It's a bit black hat, but let's be honest. Every data company, including Facebook, Google, Twitter, everyone is scraping everyone across the board. So
it's data collection. That's the more politically correct term.
A prettier word for it. Prettier word. We're all in data collection.
That's the lipstick on the pig, right? So they're collecting data across many areas, all of the social channels. So in marketing, one of the big terms right now is omni-channel, where you're marketing and you have presence across many different channels. So it could be Twitter, it could be Facebook, it could be Instagram, it could be LinkedIn, it could be whatever, Parlor. You're across many different channels. You could be in voice, you can be in direct mail, you can be in direct sales on the ground, offline. Those are all channels.
Yep.
Television, radio, different kinds of media. So they're collecting data across all of these different areas. So I took one of my clients who we've been really challenged with this, and they work in the financial services space, and they work with banks and things like that. And they work with a very certain type of bank that does certain type of financing. And it's a very lucrative type of business if you can get in there and make it work. And they've been very successful with it. And one of these institutions became their largest client. So I collected all the information from them: number of employees, number of locations, assets, number of depositors, all these different kinds of things. And I said, here's the target, and here are the data points. And we put that into the platform, and it did its thinking thing, and it came back with 1,118 matches that matched that criteria within, you know, plus or minus 50 employees, plus or minus 10 locations. So they were very similar. And so we have a list of 1,118 companies that match our ideal customer. That's like a target rich environment. And then my contact says, now this is where it gets interesting. And he took my client's company and he put it into another part of the software and said, here's the CEO, here's his office phone number, here's his direct phone number, here's his cell phone number, here's his business email address, here's his personal email address, here are all of his social profiles: LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. And I said, that's pretty amazing, right? And also salary and income and all this kind of stuff, because this was a publicly traded company. So I know this guy now. Yeah. And I can go in and I can look him up on any of the platforms.
It makes connecting with him a different game.
Absolutely. And because this stuff ties absolutely perfectly to LinkedIn. So you can go in and say, this is my guy. And if he's a second degree connection to you, which is a high probability he will be if you're working in the financial space, you've got all kinds of points of connection right to get to him. But it doesn't stop there. What he said next was, he said, well, that's the CEO. How would you like to see the org chart of the entire company? And then he opened the door, and I could see every key vice president, executive vice president, every director, every manager. I said, let's take a look at the marketing department. They showed me every person that was in that marketing department, all the analytics people, all of the media people, all of the media buyers. Oh my God, it blew my mind. And this was just one company. They can do this for 1,100 companies.
And, you know, it's, to a lot of people, this would be overwhelming. And at some point it is, you know, possibly you don't need that much data, but to be able to pinpoint one piece of data out of that is $1 million payday.
Absolutely. And the thing about it is you have to look at the value of that client. So this best client was worth about $200,000 a year. Wasn't a huge client, but they were worth $200,000 of revenue per year.
That's
if you've got 10 customers, 1% of the 10,000,
yeah,
you're talking about $2 million of business.
Yeah. It's
instant.
Like people are very, you know, it's interesting. Like I reach out to people occasionally. I give them a brief of what I do. You know, it's a very kind of brief, you know, it's kind of the, you know, I can put more clients on your doorstep kind of comment, but this is what we really do. It's where we're nailing down how to communicate with the key person, really the key buyer. And like you said, if you've got a list of 1,000 people and you just take 1%, you know, most people are chasing they're chasing numbers that are too big almost. And it becomes overwhelming for them just to operate in a day-to-day space. Whereas if you can narrow down to the 1% and you're just hand picking the exact person you want, it becomes very easy. It's like, this is like having the ultimate referral machine in place, because you're able to speak to them where they're at. And we talked about that last week.
Exactly, meeting them on the journey.
If you know them intimately and you can talk to their problems intimately, it's almost like they can't say no.
Exactly. And, you know, let's just put this in absolute perspective in this exact example. So if I were to syndicate this group into 10 spots, 10 clients, each client would have 10,000 prospects.
Yep.
And the value of one prospect is $200,000 per year. If they converted 1% of those 10,000, that's $20 million. This is a game changer.
Yeah. And this is what, I know that one of my, it's probably one thing that I repeat over and over and over and over and over and over again, and have done for the last 10 years, is the money is in the client research. Like finding your ideal client, spending the time. I will gladly take a month researching an ideal client versus moving on to the next step. Whereas everyone wants to move on to the next step. They want to get to the sexy marketing. They want to get to the headlines. They want to get to the, you know, the videos and all that sort of stuff. And none of that really matters until you are absolutely certain on who you're actually talking to. And this kind of stuff makes that so easy. And yes, it's an investment, and yes, it's a little bit of work, but it is the most profitable work you can do, hands down.
Again, this is an investment. And if you look at it from an ROI standpoint, you know, most people that are running Facebook campaigns right now are delivering 3 to 6 times return on ad spend. Most of them are in the 4 to 5. With the holidays and things like that right now, I can't tell you what the numbers are. And with the election season here in the States, the cost to advertise went up. So all the returns on the ad spend dropped. And it's only one channel, and it's freaking Facebook that can get you kicked off at any given time that you want.
Yeah. Just a quick example of what this pays is one of my clients now, and these are just rough numbers because I haven't done them for a few months at this level, but roughly paying around $600 to buy a client that produces $44,000 in profit. That's the difference between not doing your research and doing your research.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know what that is, a 40 times return or whatever, 40 something times return. That's the difference between data, like real data, real research, like really doing the work. And this, like, people are too lazy to do this work. And
again, it comes back to the numbers. They're scared of the numbers. They look at that and go, that's too much work because there's numbers involved. But
it's simple math.
It's
like,
simple arithmetic. It's not even math. It's arithmetic. We're not talking about Bayesian functions or, any of these kinds of complex, convoluted statistics. This is just arithmetic.
Yeah, it's adding and multiplication.
Exactly.
Division. It's the stuff we learn in 5th grade. It's
more like 3rd or 4th grade.
4th grade. Yeah. And this is the thing. If you have the right numbers in front of you, business becomes very simple and growth becomes very simple. It's not as hard as everyone thinks. And as I said, like, I am no data nerd. I like the numbers. I find them very easy because I know which numbers to pick, but I don't sit down and study math at night. It's not what I do. It's not I wasn't an A student in math. I can assure you of that.
Well, my experience has been that the only reason that most people are A students is they're motivated by it. And if you're not motivated by the math, you're not going to get into it. I was a good math student, but I was never really into it. I'm really into it now. I mean, I buy books on mathematics and statistics because I'm looking for certain things. I'm looking for answers. And one of the points that I wanted to make here, James, is that when people look at numbers and they look at the number of steps that it takes to determine return on ad spend or the cost to acquire a client or any of that kind of thing, you have to look at those numbers as parts in a jigsaw puzzle. And you can have a puzzle with 25 pieces, which is a very simple, easy puzzle that anybody can put together. Or you could have a puzzle with 1,000 pieces and it's all sky and the pieces all look the same. Then it's really hard. So the question for us is, to solve the problem, you have to see the patterns. And if you think about a jigsaw puzzle, the ones with the most detail, even though they look complex, they're challenging and fun to solve because you can see how the patterns fit together. And that's really what we're trying to do here, is trying to fit these patterns together, because the more complex those patterns are, the absolute less likelihood your competitor is going to be able to figure out what you're doing. All they can do is look at it and go, this guy's a magician.
Yeah. And this is the big one for me. And I keep reiterating to clients, the money really is in doing the research. If you spot the pattern, you find the money. It's simple. Yeah. And this has been, I don't want to toot my own horn, but this is kind of what I love to do. I love to lay all of the pieces out. It's like that jigsaw puzzle. When a business comes to me, I was talking to a lady yesterday. I've got another new client coming on today, and laying all those pieces out and just being able to look at the patterns, like find that, okay, that's the jigsaw. Which pieces do we actually need here to make big gains? Mm-hmm. And being able to do that, I mean, that's what I love. That's kind of my little piece that I would say I'm good at a basic level. And the thing is, with that, people don't spend the time laying the pieces out. They want to get to the sexy pieces. They want to get to the fancy. Whereas if they just slow down just for a moment,
slow down and breathe.
It pays. And it's not all about the money. Like I don't really do it all for the money. I love results. Don't get me wrong. I love money, but for me, it's about lifestyle. But being able to slow down enough to see that and then pass that on. It's kind of like, sometimes I feel like I'm cheating the system because it is so simple.
Well, you figured it out. It's simple when you figure it out. It's a mystery until you do.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that you said I want to grab onto and really drive home is it focuses around this concept of simplicity. And you said, I'm no data nerd. I know the basics of what I'm doing, but look at the results that you get if you're not a nerd and you only know the basics and your results are phenomenal. Imagine what the potential is as you start figuring out more complex puzzles. It's unlimited,
Yeah.
unlimited.
And this is the thing, like with most people, and as I said, I was talking with a lady yesterday. She just has a big puzzle to figure out. And I was telling her, you like right now, it is critical that you slow down so that you can choose the right pieces. Like if you just keep making steps forward, there's going to be no real gains. And being able to slow down enough to actually figure that puzzle out is critical for most people. Like it's the same with the new client that came on today. He's got a nice little business, and yet he's got too many pieces of the puzzle on the table and he just needs to throw a few off the side.
You know, we talked about sports and being athletic in our younger years on our last call. And I remember distinctly when I was in high school, I wanted to go out for the swim team, but the swim team wasn't in season, but the water polo was. And I'd never played water polo before. So we went out for the first workout, and the first workout was all about treading water and how long could you stay with your hands out of the water with the egg beater, you know, all the different types of treading water styles. And I thought to myself after about 2 minutes of this, I said, this is not for me. I'm not going anywhere. I'm expending enormous amounts of energy and effort to stay in the same place. This is not who I am. I want to be going. I want to be racing. I want to be going up or fast or anything, but not using all my effort to stay in one place. And if you think about the people that chase the shiny objects, that's exactly what they're doing. They're expending all of their energy to go nowhere.
That's a great analogy. It's like, I kind of feel a bit funny saying this, but I look at those people and I kind of wonder what they're up to. Like, I'm quite kind of, how do I say this without being too harsh? It seems ridiculous when you see it from the outside, like having that 30,000 foot perspective, you know. Mm-hmm. I want to lift, and this is essentially what I do. I take them out of that position where they are, lift them up and go, okay, here's where all the pieces are. You need to look down on this, not you got to get out of the muck. But when you're in that, and I guess we've all been there in different times in our life, it is it's a frantic place to live. And bringing it all back to the data, it's like, if they just knew the critical numbers, and it's never more than a handful, if they just knew what to look for, it changes the whole game.
Well, it's more than just knowing what to look for. It's also the order in which you place those numbers.
True. Yeah, true. But
that's where the natural complexity compounds simplicity.
Yeah.
So you can say there's only 5 numbers. I can manage that. Well, the number of outcomes from 5 numbers is 5 factorial. So 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1, which is 120. But then when you start putting them in a specific order, it changes everything.
Yeah, it's very interesting when, like, as I was saying, a lady came to me yesterday and she's kind of going down the launch path. And in a launch, there are hundreds of moving pieces. Mm-hmm. Now, I see that as 5 or 6 moving pieces. Whereas the person going into that that's stuck in the weeds sees the 300
Overwhelmed. They see
pieces,
overwhelmed.
and it's like there's 347 different pieces, James. What do I do next? And I mean, that's the benefit of, I guess, what we do and what we do for our clients is lifting them out of that, giving them that different perspective, having the perspective and having experience, doing launches, doing, business builds and, growth and all the things that we do. But it's, giving people that, that simplicity, like essentially just wiping clean the board of complexity, it can be really quite profound for people. It's literally that's the transformational moment that they have when they can see that they don't need the 327 different pieces and they only need 6.
Mm-hmm.
The going back to like the data and the depth of data that you were able to find,
Mm-hmm.
for someone watching this, what advice would you give them in collecting data for themselves? Like how do you go about it? Like, what's your process of going, okay, here's the target market, here's the market that I'm in. What data are you looking at to
let's just the targeting data, for instance. I'll start with something really basic. What is my ideal customer, right? And that ideal customer is an umbrella. And underneath that umbrella are the following things. There's the industry that they're in. There's the geography where they operate. Is it national? Is it regional? Is it local? Is it in 2 cities or 10 cities, whatever it is? The products or services that customer is delivering to his market, the company revenue or the annual sales, the seasonality of the business. Is it a steady business like banking, or is it seasonal like, carnivals during the summertime, or, farmers market during the summer? Number of employees, is the company public or private? Do they have regional offices? And how many, if they have that? The key contacts within the company. Do they sell their products or services through distributors? So it might be an insurance company that has independent insurance agents that are selling policies in all of these small towns, or it could be a company that makes construction supplies and they have distribution companies that distribute their construction supplies like roofing materials or electrical components, that kind of thing. Organization in the company. Who are the key officers, key players, key contacts? The age of the business. How long have they been around? And that's kind of like the quick and easy look at what I use as a starting point. Now, I may not use all of those things.
Yeah.
Those are kind of the general things that I look at as the starting point to find companies that are similar.
Yep. Yeah. I was going to say, for kind of the smaller entrepreneur, and I guess, in the past, and what I do is more so education space. There are some business with physical products and that sort of thing. More so in that education space, are they similar topics that you would start with? Or
so as far as like doing courses, that kind of thing, online training?
For someone selling courses and someone selling kind of in the education space that is the internet space online.
Okay.
Do you start with similar topics there?
That's a B2C kind of a thing for the most part. So
yep.
I'm going to be looking at the recipient. So the recipient is the ideal customer or the ideal student.
Yep.
And the first question I would say is, what is their pain point and why do we need to educate them?
Yep.
And once I start figuring out what their pain point is, then I can start diving into the complexity of that pain. Is that pain caused because of bad nutrition? Is it pain caused because of poor physical fitness? Is it caused because of lack of sleep and being overly tired? Is it, you know, there's all these factors that can play into what that pain point might be. And the more of those pain points that I can define, the more, you know, the easier it's going to be for me to find people that have those kinds of pain points.
Sure, sure. We, excuse me, we didn't really get to it, but looking at this data from the longevity perspective, the long view, taking the long view into 2021,
Right.
you know, for me, I do this kind of real in-depth work at the start of bringing on a client.
Mm-hmm.
This is where I ascertain the long view from. It's like, okay, who is this client? What's the deeper, I guess, the deeper need and the deeper desires for the client? Doesn't matter whether that's a business client or a consumer client. How do you see it for the long view? Like for me, I'm always looking at a company for 3 to 5 years. Like that's kind of what I expect to work with a company for. It's what I like. That's where my head's thinking as far as strategically, what are we doing today that will keep them going in 3 to 5 years time and produce money today? Like you can't just produce money in the future. How do you see it for the, as data as far as the long view goes?
So again, the data that we're mining or that we're collecting, that we're analyzing is based on events gone by. Something had to happen to generate that data.
Yep.
So we're looking forensically into the past. It could be that it's so current that it's new. It may have happened. I forgot to tell you one freaking crazy element here.
Bring it on.
This data, because of the way that they interface with websites and, competitors' websites.
Yep.
They could tell you when your target customer was looking to buy something and tell you when the last search was in seconds. And so he said, like, take this guy right here. He searched for this, and that was 6 minutes ago. Can you imagine being able to reach out to your ideal client with a solution within 6 minutes of when they were searching for it someplace else? Oh my gosh.
That's
SEO. It makes SEO look like caveman tools.
That's what Google is doing to us. But we think that this sort of access is, just for the Googles of the world. But
they're using Google data. They're accessing Google through the Google API to collect the same thing that Google is selling to us.
And this is what's possible for business now.
Right. Yeah. So when it comes to the long view, you've heard me say on our past lives that we meet the customer where they are in their journey. So that's where they are today. The data is where they have been in the past, and it aligns with them, or it's similar to their experience in the past. And if it is similar to what they've experienced in the past, that builds trust because they can see it and go, yeah, we've been there. We recognize that as to be true. So the next step is to say, where does this take us? What's the next step and the next step and the next step and the next step? What are the next 5 steps?
Yeah.
So just like playing chess, we're looking five moves ahead with each prospect we're working with. And what that does is that is the long view, because at each step, there's a new range of possibilities of the way it could go. And if we know what those possibilities are and which ones can keep us on track or which ones will move us off track, we can have strategies prepared for when that event presents itself. We can react accordingly.
How far are you normally looking forward, Mark?
5 steps.
What's that in a time frame normally?
So again, it depends on the cycle structure of the business. So if their lead time is 16 months, 5 steps would be 80 months, right?
Yeah.
But if their cycle time is 2 weeks, then we're looking 10 weeks into the future. So it could go 10 weeks to,
Everyone's different.
to 80 months.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting.
But imagine what this means is that if you're progressively applying your lead generation and your pipeline process consistently with a predictable methodology, you have a perpetual pipeline that is perpetually full with maturing clients. That's just like planting a garden, and you're picking off figs today, and tomorrow it's mangoes, and the day after that it's whatever it is. It's like whatever your heart desires, you can plant that fruit or that crop and have plenty of it.
And like, before we wrap up, I know you have to go at the top of the hour, Mark, but I did want to say, this is along with people not being willing to spend the time to do the market research,
Mm-hmm.
people are unwilling to allow themselves to have their best clients. And this is key. When we have this sort of data, we don't need to take the scraps. I don't mean that in a harsh way. We just don't need to deal with the people we don't want to deal with, because the data's there to deal with the absolute top of the tree.
Exactly. And this is where the complexity comes in, is we create busyness for ourselves by aligning with the wrong match.
100%. Like that there, like, if everyone just heard that for a moment, like, we can create our own complexity by allowing ourselves to choose what we don't want.
Right.
Which just sounds preposterous, but it is 100% accurate.
And that's just the beginning. When you start expanding on the possibilities around that concept, you literally create your own future with confidence, not, asking the universe to present itself or any of that kind of stuff. This is not the law of attraction. You're literally programming your mind to look for the opportunities that will deliver the results that you're seeking.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic thing.
I had a client years ago that came to me, and he was like, I'm just sick of dealing with these clients. And like, he was in the business coaching space and was dealing with clients under the $1 million mark. And he was like, they're just so much work. And I said, well, when are you going to give them up? Like, I know they keep calling you, but when are you going to start saying no? When are you going to start saying yes to the ones that are over $1 million? And it was like a light bulb moment for him. And within 2 weeks, he was like, we're already starting to get our $1 million clients.
Mm-hmm.
But with like going deep with the data and being able to target those people, you're beautiful. Like, it's like picking the best bit of fruit off the tree, the one that's ripe, instead of dealing with the ones that are still green and you've got to nurture them in the fruit bowl for a month before you can take a bite out of them.
Yeah.
You want to be able to, pick the absolute ripest fruit off the tree and deliver, because that's where great results come from. And this is another thing I learned from Jeff early on. It's like, great clients produce great results for you. And that is the key thing to growing a great business, especially from the consulting world, education world, that sort of space that we're in. And even in the business world, doesn't matter what space you're in, if you can pick the ideal client, you produce the best result without having to do much.
Right. And I think we're going to end here in the next couple of minutes, but
I'll let you wrap it up.
I think there's one really, really important thing there, is don't confuse a client's pain point between whether they're losers or winners. The tendency is to align with people that are losers. And when I say losers, I'm talking about the ones that make problems for themselves. They're their own worst enemy.
Yeah.
My business is about taking winners and making them fantastic world-class champions.
100%.
I want to take somebody with good raw talent and just coach them to perfection, to where they're world record holders and there's no competition for them.
Yeah.
And what that means is that we've got to work on their pain points, but they're going to be more precise. They're going to be smaller corrections. They're going to require a different type of management to do that, but the results are so much worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a great point to remind ourselves that we don't need to save people. Our job is to, and really everyone out there, I'm not talking about me and you, I'm talking about everyone out there. If you're selling a product, your job is to give it to the best person possible to, produce the best result with that product, whether it be a new home or a widget or a book or whatever it might be. Going out to your ideal clients is the ultimate way to build a business.
So I'm super excited about this journey. Can't wait to see how this is going to work out. If it works out the way that I'm hoping that it does, it's going to be amazing.
Well, I'm sure we'll hear more about it, but we'll wrap it up there, Mark. And
great call this week.
Yeah, awesome to talk to you again. And I'm sure we'll do it again next week.
Next week, same time, same place.